Sutta continued, sore afflicted with grief and overwhelmed with affection at the sudden disappearance of his master and feeling very sad on account of his separation from him. Sanjaya, who too was a Sutta by birth, could not utter a word in reply. Then wiping the tears with his hand and studying his mind by discourse to reason, he replied to Yudhishthira as follows with his thoughts fixed on the feet of his lord Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya said, I know neither the resolve of your uncles nor of your aunt or delight of your race. I have been deceived by those noble souls, O Lord with mighty arms. In the meantime came the divine sage Narada. Accompanied by the sage Tumburu, Yudhishthira went forth with his younger brothers to receive them, and after greeting them, spoke with great reverence. Yudhishthira said, I know not the movements of my uncles, O divine sage. I wonder where they have gone hence, nor do I know where is gone my aunt, so well known for her austere penance and distrust at the loss of her sons. Your holiness alone can guide us across the endless ocean of grief as a pilot in the deep. Thereupon the worshipful Narada, the foremost among sages, spoke as follows, Grieve not for anybody, O king, for the world is under the control of God. It is to him, the supreme ruler of all, that all these worlds along with their rulers offer their homage. It is he who unites and he again who parts living beings from one another. Even as oxen, controlled individually by small strings, passed through their nostrils and held together by strong rope, carry loads for their master, so these human beings tied down to the rope of the divine word, the Veda, through the smaller strings of their different denominations such as Brahmana, Brahmachari and so on, offer their worship to God through their respective duties, even as playthings hereon offer their worship to God through their respective duties, even as playthings here in this world are brought together and separate by the will of the player, so do the coming together and parting of human beings depend on the will of God. Whether you consider both eternal and transient as embodied soul, or as neither eternal nor ephemeral, as the unspeakable absolute which is devoid of all attributes, they are not worth grieving for unless through affection born of infatuation. Therefore, O dear Yudhishthira, shake off the uneasiness of mind caused by ignorance as to how those people, your uncle and aunt, may be faring without you, helpless and miserable as they are. This body, constituted as it is of the five elements, earth, water, fire, air and ether, is subject to the control of the time, fate and three modes of Prakriti, Sattva, Raja and Tama. How can it protect others any more than a man fallen in the jaw of python can help another? The handless, such as the quadruped, serve as the substance of those that have hands, such as human beings. Those that have no feet, such as grass, etc., sustain the life of the four-footed animals, and even among the handless, the smaller ones serve as the sustenance of the bigger ones. In this way, life sustains life. All the king, O king, is the one self-effulgent Lord, the self of all embodied soul. It is he who appears as the subject and the object perceive him, as manifested in multitudinous form through Maya illusion. It is he, O mighty ruler, the same Lord who brings into being the living creation, who has now appeared on the earth as living death Kala for the extermination of the enemies of gods. The work of the God has now been well nigh accomplished, and the Lord awaits the completion of that which yet remains to be done. You too should wait so long as the Lord is still here. Dhritarashtra with his younger brother and his own wife Gandhari has gone to the hermitage of sages to the south of the Himalayas, where the Ganga, the celestial river, has for the pleasure of the 7 celebrated sages, Saptrishis as they are called, split herself into 7 streams to flow through 7 different channels which they call Saptashota, bathing in the Saptastrota thrice a day, in the morning and evening as well as at the midday, and pouring oblation into the sacred fire according to the scriptural ordinance. He is living on water, alone sane of mind and free from all cravings, having controlled his pose, sitting in one pose continually for hours together, and breathe and withdrawn his 6 senses, the 5 external senses and the mind, which is known as the 6th or internal senses, from their objects. He has shaken off through contemplation on Sri Hari the impurities of his mind in the shape of Raja, Sattva and Tama, nay, merging his ego, sense of I-ness and individuality in Buddhi, the principle of intelligence and the source of I consciousness, and dissolving his Buddhi in the individual soul, the Kshatraja as it is called. He has identified his individual soul with the absolute Brahma, the substrate of all, as the space within a jar is united with the unlimited space. Again, having thoroughly controlled his senses and mind, he has given up all enjoyments and uprooted the effects in the shape of latent desire of the gunas of Maya. Nay, having abandoned all his duties, he sits motionless like a post now. Therefore do not stand in his way by trying to contact him on the 5th day hence. O king, he will cast off his body, which will be reduced to ashes, finding the body of her lord being consumed along with the herd. He is occupying by the sacrificial fire. His virtuous wife, standing outside, will enter the fire in the order to follow her husband, and witnessing the wonder with a mixed feeling of joy and grief or delight of the Kurus, Vidras will go out again on pilgrimage to sacred places. Having told him all this, the sage Narada with Tumbaru immediately ascended to heaven, and treasuring up his words in his heart, Yudhishthira ceased sorrowing. Thus ends the 13th discourse, forming part of the story of the Naimisha forest in book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahansa Samhita. Jai Shri Krishna. Ath Chaturdasho Adhyayah. Discourse 14. King Yudhishthira grows apprehensive at the sight of evil omens, and Arjuna returns from Dwarka. Jai Shri Krishna. Sutta continued, Arjuna had left for Dwarka in order to see his relations, Shri Krishna and others, and to know the doings of Shri Krishna of sacred renown. He, however, did not return from that place, even though many months had elapsed. In the meantime, Yudhishthira, the illustrious Sessions of Kuru, saw portents of a fearful nature. Time had taken a dreadful turn, as was clear from the fact that the characteristics of the season had totally changed. People had taken to sinful ways of living, their heart possessed with anger, greed and falsehood. Their dealings had become crooked. Even friendship was marred by deceitfulness. There were quarrels between parents and sons, relations and relations, brothers and brothers, and even between husbands and wives. At the approach of the Kali age, the nature of individual was blighted by evils like greed and so on. While omen bodying the worst type of calamity appeared in the cosmic nature. Witnessing all this, King Yudhishthira spoke to his younger brother Bhima as follows. Yudhishthira said, Arjuna was sent to Dwarka to see our relations, Shri Krishna and others, as well as to find out what Shri Krishna of sacred renown was doing. All those 7 months have since elapsed. O Bhimsena, I do not quite understand why your younger brother has not yet returned. May it not be that the time predicted by the celestial sage has arrived, when the Lord intends to cast off the foam assumed by him for the spook of sport, the Lord to whose grace we owe our fortune, our kingdom, our suppose, our life, the continuance of our race, our progeny, our victory over the enemies, and our title to the higher worlds. Observe the fearful portents, O tiger among men, in the heavens as well as on the earth, as also in our own person, boding some calamity near at hand that will distract our mind. My left thigh, left eye and left arm, dear brother, are throbbing again and again, and my heart quakes every now and then. All these will surely bring some unhappy news. Lo, the she-jackal's vomiting fire howls at the rising sun, and this dog, dear Bhima, fearlessly bays at me. Good animals such as the cow pass by to my left, while other inauspicious animal as the donkey etc. turn to my right. Nay, I see my horses whipping, or tiger among men. This dog, the harbinger of death, as well as the owl and its enemy the crow, keeping awake all the night, make my heart shudder with their horrible cries, and would have the world converted into a desert. The quarters look smoky, the orbs of the sun and the moon appears with a misty halo encircling them. The earth with the mountains quake every now and then, and there are frequent thunderclaps accompanied by violent lightning strokes, dear brother. The wind blows very hard, spreading darkness with dust. The clouds rain bloods, thus creating a ghastly scenes everywhere. Look at the sun, which has lost its brilliance, and the planets contending against one another in the heavens. The heaven and the earth seem to be set on fire due to multitude of ghosts and other creatures congregating here and there. Stream and big river, no less than lakes and minds of the people, are all agitated. The fire does not burn even with clarified butter. I wonder what surprise is this fateful time going to spring on us. Calves refuse to suck the udders, and their mothers do not allow themselves to be milked. Cow weep their trickling down their faces, while bulls do not do rejoice with the herd. The images of gods appear to weep, nay, they prepare and move from their seats. These outlying districts and villages, cities and gardens, mines and hermitages look cheerless and robbed of their splendor. God knows what evil they portend for us. For these grave foreboding, I am led to believe that the earth has undoubtedly lost its calm, having been deprived of the touch of the Lord's feet that possess graceful marks of a thunderbolt, etc., unknown to the feet of any other person. As the king was thus expressing his concern with a heart full of anxiety at the sight of these portentous phenomena, or Shaunaka Arjuna, whose banner was emblazoned with the figure of a monkey, returned from Dwarka, the capital of the Yadus, seeing his younger brothers fallen at his feet with a strange look about him, lackluster and ill at ease, his face cast down and tears trickling down from his lotus-like eyes. The king felt anxious at heart and questioned him in the midst of his other kinsmen, recalling the words of Narada. Yudhishthira said, "Are our relations, the Madhus, the Bhujas and the Dashras, the Arhas, the Satvatas, the Andhakas and the Vrashnis happy in Dwarka? The capital of the Antras is my revered maternal grandfather Shurasena, doing well, and are our maternal uncles Ankadudumbi Vasudeva and his younger brother enjoying good health. Again, are our maternal aunts, the 7 wives of Vasudeva, Devaki and others, who are related to one another or sisters, quite health themselves, as also their sons and daughters-in-law. Does King Ahuluka, Ugrasena, the father of Devaki, whose son Kamsa was notorious for his wickedness, and his younger brother Devaka, still alive, and here Hrudika and his son Kratavarma, Akrura, a cousin of Vasudeva, Jayanta, Gada and Sharana. Shri Krishna brothers as well as Shatrujit and others faring well. And is the divine Sri Rama Balrama, the Lord of Satvatas, Yadavas, happy is Pradyumna, Shri Krishna's eldest son, the greatest warrior among all the Vrishnis well, and is the divine Aniruddha, Pradyumna's son, of marvelous dash on the field of battle, prospering Sushena and Kordusena, two of the 10 sons of Rukmini, of whom Pradyumna was the eldest, and Samba, born of Jambavati, and all the other great sons of Shri Krishna, including Rishabha, and also their sons, and even so Shatadeva, Uddhava, and the other attendants of Shri Krishna, and other principal Sattvatas, Yadavas. Sunanda and Nanda being the chief of them, are all these doing well, protected by the arms of Sri Rama and Shri Krishna. Do they ever inquire after our welfare wants, as they are by ties of affection to us? And is Lord Govinda Shri Krishna, a friend of the Brahmanas, and full of affection for his devotees, happy in his famous council chamber, Sudharma, at his own capital in the midst of his kith and kin. It is for the protection of prosperity and well-being of all the worlds that the Prime Person Shri Krishna is living in the milk ocean of the Yadavas race with his constant companion Lord Avanta, Shri Balrama, respected by all the Yadus, revel like the attendants of Lord Vishnu in their own city of Dwarka, protected by his long arms by virtue of their service to his feet, which they regard as their foremost duty. Satyabhama and other 16,000 and old spouses of the Lord prevailed on the latter to conquer gods on the field of battle and carried by force the objects of sense enjoyment, such as the celestial Parajita tree, sought by the gods themselves and fit to be enjoyed by goddess Saki, the spouse of Indra, the wielder of a thunderbolt, nay the great Yadava warrior who depend on the might of his storm arms, always fearlessly street the council chamber known by the name of Sudharma, which was snatched by force from Indra and was worthy of the foremost god. Are you enjoying good health yourself, dear Arjuna? You seem to have lost the brightness of your countenance. Did you fail to receive proper attention, or were you ever treated with respect during your prolonged stay at Dwarka? Dear brother, I hope no one tormented by with words etc., devoid of love and full of inauspicious import, did you ever fail to grant the prayer of suppliants who approached you with some hope, or to give something which you might have promised of your own accord? I hope you never turned away any Brahmana, child, cow, aged or ailing man, any woman or any creatures whatsoever that might have approached you for protection, noted as you are the aforesaid, offering shelter to the needy. I am sure you never shared the bed with a woman unworthy of your, nor did you copulate flippantly with a woman worthy of you. I further hope that you were not vanquished while on your way back by your equals nor by your inferiors. Did you ever take your meals ignoring the aged or children deserving to be fed? Or did you perpetrate any loathsome act which was unbecoming of you? Or is it that you have been torn from your ever most beloved and initiate friend and relation Sri Krishna, and thus consider yourself desolate, for there can be no other cause of your agony? Thus ends the 14th discourse entitled Yudhishthira Doubt in Book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahansa Samhita. Jai Shri Krishna. अथ पंचदशो अध्यायः Discourse 15. Jai Shri Krishna. Stricken with grief at their separation from Shri Krishna, the Pandavas installed Parikshit on the throne of Hastinapura and ascend to heaven. Sutta continued, Shri Krishna friend Arjuna, also nicknamed as Krishna, who had grown lean and thin on account of his separation from Shri Krishna, was stormed with a number of questions by his elder brother, King Yudhishthira, since his gloomy appearance gave rise to many a doubt. His lotus-like face and heart were withering with grief, and his brightness gone. And wholly engrossed in that thought of that very Lord, he could not make any answer, overwhelmed with anxiety caused by love that had swelled due to the disappearance of the Lord, and recalling the friendliness, beneficence, and goodwill shown by him while playing the role of a charioteer and so on. He managed with difficulty to restrain his tears within his eyes and wept with his hands those that had trickled down the cheeks. And in a voice choked with tears, he addressed his elder brother, King Yudhishthira, as follows. Arjuna said, I have been deceived, O great king, by Sri Hari Shri Krishna, who appeared in the form of a friend and relation to me, and who has now robbed me of my mighty valor, which was once of the wonder even of gods. At a moment's separation from him, the world presents a loathsome sight, even as this body is called dead when bereft of life. Through his might I was able, on the occasion of the self-election of a husband by Draupadi, to outshine the princes that had assembled at the house of King Drupada, intoxicated with love, to hit the revolving fish hanging from the roof as a target after duly fitting the bow with an arrow, and in this way to win the hand of Krishna Draupadi. His presence I speedily conquered Indra and his heavenly hosts, offered the Kandava forest to the god of fire, and secured the council chamber built by the demon Maya, which was of wonderful workmanship and full of conjuring devices, and to battery chiefs brought presents from every quarter during your Rajasuya sacrifices. It was by his might that the revered Bhimasena, your younger brother, possessing as he does the strength and vigor of 10,000 elephants, succeeded in slaying Jarasandha, who was haughty enough to set his foot on the heads of vanquished king, in order to accomplish in the Rajasuya sacrifice. Nay, it was he who set free a number of princes that had been made captive and brought by Jarasandha to his capital for being sacrificed to the god Mahabhairava, the chief of the Pramathas or attendants of Lord Shiva, and who is written brought present for your sacrifice when your wife Draupadi fell at his feet with tears rolling down her cheeks and losing her lovely bread, which though rendered most sacred and praiseworthy by being sprinkled with holy water during the Rajasuya sacrifice, had been roughly handled by miscreants like Dushasana and others in open court. He required the wrong done to her by widowing their own wives and thereby compelling the latter to lose their hair. Nay, it was he who saved us from a terrible pitfall contrived by our enemy Duryodhana through the sage Durvasa, who took his meals ahead in the company of not less than 10,000 people wherever he went, by going to the forest and accepting a stray remained on some vegetable stuff left in Draupadi's kettle. By his doing so, the whole host of students that had accompanied Durvasa, while yet immersed in water for ablution and prayers, felt as if all the three worlds had been surfeited. Again, it was by his might that I astonished with my valor in a single combat Lord Shankara, who holds a trident in his hand, no less than his supposed goddess Girija, the daughter of Himalaya, the king of the mountains, the former of who pleased to impart to me the secret of using his own missile called the Pashupat Astra, as also did the guardian of every other quarter, nay, ascending to heaven in this very body I shared with the mighty Indra, the exalted throne in his court, while I was enjoying a holiday in the same celestial abode. Indra and the other gods sought the help of my powerful arms, which bore the celebrated Gandiva bow and owed their strength to him for the destruction of their enemies, O Yudhishthira. Alas, by the Supreme Person I stand cheated today. Befriended by him, I was able to cross on a chariot all along the bundleless and unfathomable ocean of the Kaurava host, which was rendered for the impassable by formidable aquatic creatures in the shape of Bhishma, Drona and others. Again, it was with his help that I not only recovered from the hands of our enemies, the Kauravas, the abundant wealth in the shape of cattle of King Virata, but was also able to snatch from their heads their glorious turbans as well as the precious stones from their diadems, keeping in front of me as a charioteer as I stood face to face with the armies successively led by Bhishma, Drona, our preceptor, Karna and Salya, and adorned with the chariots of a host of Kshatriya chiefs. My lord, he stole away by his very look the lifespan, the heart as well as the strength and the vigor of the great Car warriors who commanded the various troops. Securely placed as I was in his arms, the missiles of unfailing power hurled at me by my preceptor Drona, Bhishma, Karna, Bhurishrava, the grandson of Bhalika, Susharma, the king of the Trigratas, Salya, Jadratha, the king of the Sindhus, and Bhalika, the younger brother of Shantanu, and other did not even touch my person any more than the weapons of the demons in the service of King Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad's father. Did Prahlada, a devotee of Lord Vishnu, stupid as I was, I choose for my charioteer the Lord whose lotus feet are adored by noble souls for exemptions from birth and death, and who surrendered to his devotees his very self, near dazzled by his glory. Great Car warriors who were arrayed against me could not strike at me, even though I stood on the ground, my horses being exhausted. The jokes of Lord Madhava, Shri Krishna, brightened with his hearty and charming smile and his captivating manner of addressing me as son of Pratha Kunti, Arjuna, beloved companion and delight of the Kuru's trail, my heart to its very depth, O ruler of men, even as I call them to mind, since we treated each other on an equal footing while in bed or sitting together, while rambling or indulging in self-praise, or even at dinner and so on. I occasionally twitted him and said, "Friend, you are indeed a veracious man." Yet in his unlimited greatness, the exalted soul put up with all my faults, fool as I was, even as a friend would bear with his friend or a father with his own son. Bereft of the Supreme Person, who was my beloved companion and friend of a suzerain Lord, I am left without a heart. That is why, while escorting the Lord's spouse on the way, dear brother, I was vanquished like a woman by the wicked cowherds. The same indeed is my Gandiva bow, and the same my shafts, the same my chariot, and drawn by the same horses. Nay, I am the same Car warriors before whom monarch bowed their head. Bereft of the Lord, however, all these were reduced to nothingness in a moment, like an oblation poured into ashes, service done with some covert motive, and the seed sown in a barren land. O King, as regards our relations at Dwarka, the city of the Yadvas, about whom you have made enquiries just now, they all lost their reasons under the influence of a curse pronounced by the Brahmanas and drunk wine, and their mind having been thrown completely off the balance through revelry. They struck one another with their first like strangers and perished with the exceptions of only 4 or 5, In fact, it is a diversion of the Almighty Lord that living beings now kill one another and now foster one another. Even as in water the deep, O King, the larger among the aquatic creatures devour the smaller ones. The stronger consume the weaker, and the larger and the stronger ones eat up one another. Even so the Lord caused the other powerful princes to be exterminated by the mighty and most powerful Yadus, and had the Yadus killed by the Yadus themselves, since they had now grown to be a burden to the earth. The words of Lord Govinda Shri Krishna, appropriate as they were to the place and occasion of the talk, unpertinent to the subject in hand, and suited the agony of the heart, ravish my soul even as I call them to mind. Sutta said, as Jishnu Arjuna was thus contemplating on Shri Krishna lotus feet with most intense devotion, his mind became tranquil and free from passion. All the impurities of his mind in the shape of lust, anger, so on, having been wiped out by devotion that had grown in intensity through contemplation on the feet of Lord Vasudeva, he how recollected the gospel which, though preached by the Lord in the battlefront, had been forgotten through mental obscurity occasioned by lapse of the time and intense world activity, the veil of Maya, nescience having been withdrawn from him through the realization of Brahma. Arjuna transcended the three gunas, modes of Prakriti. His illusion in the shape of the senses of duality was fully resolved, his astral body was dissolved, and he was finally rid of sorrow and secured immunity from transmigration. Hearing of the Lord's departure for his divine abode and the extermination of the race of Yadu, Yudhishthira, whose mind was now completely set at rest, resolved to ascend to heaven, when Pratha, the mother of the Pandavas, heard from Yudhishthira of the destruction of the Yadu and the Lord's mysterious departure as told by Arjuna. She fixed her mind with exclusive devotion on Lord Adhukshaja, Shri Krishna, and turned her back on the world consisting of birth and death. Lord Shri Krishna, who is ever free from the birth and death, cast off in the eyes of the world the very body with which he had relieved the earth burden, just as a man threw away the thorn with which he has extracted another. For both were equal in the eye of the Lord, even as the Lord like an actor assumes and then drops the forms of a fish, etc. So did he shuffle of the body with which he had removed the earth's burden. When Lord Shri Krishna, the best hour of liberation, bodily departed from the earth, leaving behind his stories which are charming to the ear, that very day entered the Kali age, which leads men of unweakened consciousness to unrighteousness. The wise king Yudhishthira saw the growth of vice like greed, falsehood, deceit and violence, etc., not only in the city of Hastinapura, but in the whole of this state, nay, in every home, as well as in the mind of the people, and concluding therefrom the advance of the Kali age, prepared to depart from his world. At Hastinapura, the emperor installed his grandson Parikshit, who has not only well disciplined, but was his own compeer in the virtues as the sovereign of the ocean-girdled earth. While at Mathura, he adorned Vajra, the son of Aniruddha and the only surviving member of Shri Krishna's family, as the lord of the Shurasena. Then, having offered a sacrifice to Prajapati, the divinity presiding over perception, Yudhishthira, who had mastered his self, received the sacred fire into the himself, renounced his home, become miraculous, leaving at the palace his fine clothes, bangles, and all. He renounced the feelings of I and mine, and completely served all his worldly ties. He mentally merged his speech into mind, the mind into prana, the vital air which has its seat in the lungs, the prana into apana, the life wind which goes downwards and out at the anus, the apana with its function of expiation into mrityu, the god of death, and merged mrityu into the body made up of the 5 elements, thus realizing his body as nothing but death. The royal sage Yudhishthira merged the same into the 3 gunas mode of Prakriti. These 3 gunas again he merged into the one fundamental Prakriti, nature. This Prakriti, which is the universal cause, he merged into the Jiva, individual soul, and the Jiva into the imperishable Brahma, the Absolute. In other words, Habs began to feel that the whole of the phenomenal universe is the same Brahma, clad in rage and abstaining from food and drink. He took a vow of complete silence, flung about his hair in a disorderly way, and exhibited himself like a dullard or a madman or a fiend, waiting for none and hearing nothing. Like a deaf man, he came out of the palace and, contemplating in his heart on the supreme Brahma, he took the path toward the north, a path trodden by exalted souls, even the past and treading which one does not return, finding the people on earth in the grip of the Kali age, the promoter of unrighteousness, all his brothers to followed him with a similar resolve to attain the divine abode, having fully achieved all the ends of life, and knowing the lotus feet of Lord Vaikuntha Shri Krishna as their eternal abode, they clung to them with their meditation on those feet. Their mind was exclusively fixed on the supreme reality of sin. With the pure mind they attained the goal which is difficult of attainment for the weak and sensually minded. Vidura too, whose mind was fully controlled and possessed by Shri Krishna, cast off his body at Prabhasa near Dwarka, and with his thought fixed on Shri Krishna, he returned to his abode, the realm of Yama, accompanied by the maidens who had called there to take him back. Draupadi also, when she came to know of her lord's indifference to the world, concentrated her mind on the divine Shri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, and attended to him. He who listened with reverence to his most sacred and blessed story of the departure in the manner of Pandu's son, the beloved of the Lord develops devotion to Sri Hari, Sri Krishna, and attains perfection, final beatitude. Thus end the 15th discourse entitled The Ascents of the Pandavas to Heaven in Book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahansa Samhita. Jai Shri Krishna. अथ षोडशो अध्यायः Discourse 16 Conquest of the world by King Parikshit and the dialogue between Dharma, the god of piety, and Mother Earth. Jai Shri Krishna. Sutta continued, after the ascent of the Pandavas to heaven, King Parikshit, who was a great devotee of the Lord, ruled over the earth according to the instructions of the foremost Brahmanas. He possessed Oshonaka, the same noble virtue as had been predicted by expert astrologers. At the time of his birth, he married Iravati, the daughter of Uttara, his own maternal uncle, and begot through her 4 sons Janmeja and others. Taking Krapa, the son of Shradavana, for his guru guide, he performed on the bank of the Ganga 3 Ashwamedhas, horse sacrifices, offering liberal sacrificial feasts to the officiating priest. In these sacrifices, the gods accepted the offerings before the eyes of all. Somewhere in the course of his conquest of the world, the hero caught and subdued by his superior might the spirit of the Kali age, who is in the form of Shudra, was disguised as a prince, striking with his foot a cow and a bull. Shaunaka said, why did the king merely subdue the spirit of the Kali age? in the course of the conquest instead of killing him outright and thus ridding humanity of his evil influence one for all. For thus disguised as a prince, he was after all a vile Shudra who took it into his head to strike a cow and bull with his foot. Therefore, O blessed one, tell me all that, if it is consented with the story of Sri Krishna or with that of saints who taste the honey flowing from his lotus feet are devoted to him. Of what avail are other idle discourses in which life is one only spent? For the good of mortal men who though short-lived are yet eager to realize the true, the all-powerful God of death has been invited here to perform prosperity rites. Nobody will die so long as the God of death is here. That all-powerful God has been invited by the great sages so that even in the mortal world people may get to hear and enjoy the ambrosial discourse despiting the sports of Sri Hari. The lifespan of the unfortunate men of this world who are dull of understanding and short-lived too is frittered away in sleep by night and in frivolous pursuits by day. Sutta said, while Parikshit was living in the Kuru Jangala country, he heard the unpalatable news that Kali had entered the territories protected by his army and accordingly took his bow, fond of war as he was. Mountaining his well-decorated car, driven by dark horses and bearing an ensign with the device of a lion, he sallied forth from the capital for the conquest of the world, surrounded by his own army consisting of chariot and elephants, horse and foot. Having conquered Bhadrashva, Ketumala, Bharata, the northern Kurus, Kimapurusha and other countries, he lived tribute from them. Everywhere he heard the people sing the praises of his high soul for bears, the Pandavas, revealing at the same time the glory of Sri Krishna. He also heard the story of his own deliverance at the hands of Sri Krishna from the fire of the missile discharged by Ashwathama, the son of Drona, as well as of the cordial relations existing between the Vrishnis, the Yadavas and the sons of Pratha, Kunti, and of latter's devotion to Lord Keshava. Sri Krishna, highly pleased with them, those who sang these stories, the noble-minded emperor bestowed on them costly garments and necklace, his eyes wide open with joy. Hearing how Lord Vishnu Sri Krishna had played the role of a charioteer to Arjuna, attend the councils of Pandavas, waited upon them, played the friend and ambassador, kept watch outside their camp at night in the pose of a warrior, followed them as a waiter, eulized Yudhishthira, and bowed to him, not only himself, but caused the whole world to bow at the feet of his beloved Pandavas, made them worthy of adoration for the whole world. The Emperor Parikshit developed devotion to his lotus feet. As he was thus following in the footsteps of his forefather, from day to day in the course of his conquest of the world, a strange incident occurred not very far from his territorial limits. Hear of it from me. Hoofing about on one foot in the form of a bull, Dharma, the god of virtue, saw Mother Earth in the form of a cow, shorn of her luster and bathing her cheeks in tears like a mother that has lost her child, and inquired of her as follows. Dharma said, "Are you keeping well, good lady? With your somewhat withering face you look quite pale. I perceive there is agony in your heart. Do you grieve for some relations living at a distance from you, madam? It may be you are sorrowing for me, deprived as I am of 3 of my feet and left with but 1, or you may be feeling sorry for yourself, knowing the Shudras are going to rule over you thereafter. or you are grieving for the gods and other heavenly beings that have been robbed of their share, offering in sacrifices, or do you sorrow for the people who are suffering due to the Indra, the god of rain? Withholding rain, do you feel concern for women who are unprotected by their husbands or children who are being persecuted by their own parents as if by man-eating demons? Or are you sorry for the goddess of speech, the Vedic lore that has fallen in the hands of Brahmanas of reproachful conducted, or for the foremost Brahmanas who are in the service of royal houses that have no respect for the Brahmana race? Again, do you grieve for the fallen Kshatriya dominated by Kali, or for the kingdoms that have been devastated by them? Or do you sorrow for the world of living beings who are intent upon eating and drinking, clothing and washing themselves, or on sexual intercourses, disregarding all barriers, or distressed by Sri Hari, Sri Krishna, who had come down to the mortal plane only in the order to relieve your one rouse burden and has now vanished out of sight, Mother Earth? Are you reminded of his exploits, the very thought of which is conducive the final beatitude? Tell me, Earth, storehouse of all riches, the cause of your mental agony on account of which you look so emaciated, or is it that time which is more powerful than all powerful beings has robbed you, Mother, of your good fortune, which was once exalted even by the gods? Earth replied, Dharma, you are surely known all that you asked me. It was due to him, Sri Krishna, that you were endowed till the other day with all your 4 feet that were conducive to the happiness of the world, nay, truthfulness, purity, compassion, forbearance, liberty, contentment, guileless, composure of mind, subjugation of the senses, austerity, evenness of temper, endurance, quietism, sacred knowledge, self-realization, dispassion, absence of thirst, for sensuous enjoyment, lordship, power to rule, heroism, majesty, strength, right judgment, independence, absolute freedom, dexterity, loveliness of form, fortitude, gentleness of disposition, exceptional intelligence, modesty, amiability, quickness of mind, acuteness of the senses and bodily vigor, good fortune, sobriety, steadiness, servants, good reputation, respectability, and absence of egoism. These and many other excellent virtues which are sought by men aspiring for greatness are ever present in him and never decline, O blessed one. By him who is the respectable of all the noble qualities and the abode of Shri, the goddess of prosperity, has the world been disturbed today and has thus fallen under the eyes of the wicked Kali. It is such a world that I am grieving for. I am equally concerned for myself, for you, the chief of divinities, and the other gods, means, sages and holy men, as well as for the generality of men belonging to all grades of society and stages of life, though exclusively devoted to the Lord Brahma and the other gods, practiced austere penance for a long time in order to secure a kind look for Shri, the goddess of prosperity. Even the Shri seeks with excessive fondness the lovely shade of his feet, leaving her home in the bed of lotuses, exclusively adorned by the glorious feet of the same divine Lord that bore the marks of a lotus, thunderbolt, goad and flag, and deriving great splendor through them. I once outshone all the 3 worlds, and when that good luck ceased, he forsook me. Proud as I was of my great good fortune, absolutely independent as he is, he assumed a charming personality in the race of Yadu in order to make you whole with all your feet restored as a part of his own being by his own might, finding your grave at the loose of your 2 feet. Nay, he removed my oppressive burden in the shape of 100 Akshahnis of king who belonged to the demon race in their perceived incarnation. What woman could bear separation from that supreme person who stole away by his endearing look, bright smile and sweet words, the patience as well as the pride of loving and proud ladies like Satyabhama and others, the adorned by whose footprints I felt a thrill of joy as Mother Earth and Dharma, the god of virtue, were thus talking. The royal sage Parikshit arrived at the bank of the Saraswati, where it flows towards the east. Thus ends the 16th discourse entitled The Dialogue between Goddess Earth and Dharma in Book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as Paramahansa Samhita. Jai Shri Krishna.